All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. Good Wednesday evening to each and every last one of you. We are joined here with the Honorable Harold Pryor. He is the first African American elected to the Broward County State Attorney's office. He was first elected in the year 2020, I believe, and he has been re-elected again. He's going to be our state attorney for the next 4 years. We hope we can keep you here for another 30 years. So the Honorable Harold Pryor, welcome back to the Adams Brothers podcast, sir.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for having me. I think this is my third time.
This is your second. We had you on there when you were then candidate.
Yeah, and
back in 2020 during the COVID lockdown.
Yes.
I always said that I wanted to come back, and I remember we saw each other at an event, and we were able to make it happen in my second term. So I'm happy to be back. We had a good time.
Yes, we did, and it's always good to see you out active in public as well. So if you're just joining us, we're here with the Honorable Harold Pryor, the Broward County State Attorney. So Mr. Pryor, go ahead and tell our viewers out there that's watching right now, tell them about Harold Pryor.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I have two children who go to school here in Broward County. I have a 7-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. My wife, she's an attorney as well. We live in Broward County, obviously. We chose Broward County to be our home so many years ago because we love the diversity, but also we love the culture, and we love the sense of history and pride in this community. When you look at the history of the state as a whole, Broward County has always been at the forefront when you think about thought leaders, when you think about education, when you think about the arts, sports, and the legal field. Many of the first and the pioneers in our state, and even in the South and in the United States, all come from Broward County. When you think about the first appointed judge to the federal bench from the South, you think of rest in peace, our brother Alcee Hastings. When you think about the first judge appointed to the bench since Reconstruction era, you think of T.J. Reddick.
Yes.
Judge Robinson, when you think of her being the first Black woman appointed to the bench, it's just so much history. Zebedee Wright, the first African-American to Florida state law. He's also my fraternity brother. And when you think about, University of Florida, George Allen, first Black man to graduate from the University of Florida College of Law. There's just so much history and origin here in Broward County. And so I'm the Broward County State Attorney. As you stated, I was elected in 2020. I've been in office for 4 years. I'm starting my second 4-year term. My office, we're responsible for prosecuting crimes ranging from minor misdemeanor offenses all the way to first-degree premeditated murder. And also I run the largest legal office in the county. I run the second largest prosecutorial office in the state of Florida. And I run the 16th largest prosecutorial office in the United States. And so we're a big agency. I'm seen as the chief law enforcement officer in the county. No disrespect to my good friend, Gregory Tony, who's doing an amazing job as our sheriff. But that's just the way the civics works out. Everybody in the county, if anyone gets arrested in the county, no matter what the agency, whether it's BSO or any other police agency in the county, they have to submit it to my office, and we make the final decision whether or not charges are being brought. And so that's the importance of this office and the great power and responsibility. More so, I say responsibility. I don't see it as power. The great responsibility that my office have and that I have as running this major agency.
Well, Mr. Pryor, we think that you're doing an outstanding job. Not only you, but your staff down there. We've met them. When we were down there with our sisters, Angela Savage's case, and we met with you and Pashiela Shield, Ms. Regina Faulkner, and several others. Man, you have a 5-star team of attorneys down there, man, and they're doing an outstanding job, I might say, as well.
Yes.
Thank you, and I'm blessed. And it was unfortunate that we had to meet under those circumstances, given the terrible way and the tragedy that your sister experienced and what your family's lived through for so many years, and you have to constantly live through it when someone kills a loved one. And the realness and the reality of parole and the realness of people being released after taking another individual's life. And they get to walk the earth. And so it's the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. I think some people just fail to realize, or even really focus on the stories of the families, how it negatively impacts y'all. But the one thing that stands out to me about your family and so many other families I do come across, but mainly your family as well, is it's not in a selfish manner, meaning it's not just because you want this man to feel pain because of what he did to your sister. You
Right.
really care about the community because you don't want him to harm anyone else. And that was the constant theme when we would meet and try to talk and try to figure out ways how we can ensure that no one else is coming into harm's way. And that's what gives me so much energy, and that's what gives me hope, because I know that there are people out there. It's not out of selfish, you know, pursuit of revenge. It's you really want to protect the people around you. You want to avoid another situation happening or having another experience that you experienced by way of the death of your sister. And so that, to me, that just kudos to y'all, and my heart goes out to y'all, and you guys serve as an inspiration to me in my office with how you deal with it and how you're trying to just help the overall community, and keep the community safe. So that means a lot to me, and I know our community appreciates it as well.
And we
Thank you.
and
We
we
appreciate
appreciate it too. And for the people that don't know out there, that a lot of people were asking us, and while we're talking about it, we may
Right.
as well just continue to ask these questions.
Right.
Because so many people, would see us out in public or call us on the phone, and they would wonder, how in the world could this guy murder your sister, Angela Savage, Cassandra Scott, two young black pregnant women, murder them and their unborn child, and only do a total of 15 years in prison. So, I believe he was originally charged with first-degree murder and maybe kidnapping, and I think somehow those charges were dropped.
Yeah.
Could you kind of explain to the people that's watching that would like to know how he ended up, with that amount of time, if you remember?
Yeah, it was well before my tenure when I took office. But my understanding is, sometimes based on these cases and based on the facts, based on the evidence, based on legal loopholes and hurdles, sometimes you have to pursue a case and you have to look at the practical outcome of a particular case, given the lack of evidence, given when you balance the evidence, there may be evidence, but when you balance the legal constraints, the evidentiary rules, what a judge might allow in, what a judge might not allow in. The court of public opinion, everything comes in, right? The court of public opinion is easier to convict, but when a case goes to actually go to trial, and when we consider a case, or whenever my office would consider cases, and I can't speak for my predecessors in these particular matters, but I do know from experience is when we look at a case, we assess a case and look at the rules of evidence, we look at the law and see what we can practically get in. And my understanding with this case, and not just this particular matter, but any matter that we come across, and people may look at it from the outside and say, well, why did they give this guy only 15 years? Why did they give this individual only 20 years? What happened here? Normally it's because the evidence, or sometimes there could be the lack thereof, or sometimes there is evidence, but it doesn't pass a sufficient legal hurdle for a judge to decide to put in the evidence. And then we have to make that tough call. Do we risk losing the case? Do we risk losing the case and this person totally walking free? Or do we come up to some form of a resolution where at least we put this person in prison, they're incarcerated, we put them on probation after the term of their incarceration, and hope that we can keep them under some type of supervision so they don't harm anyone else. And that's the unfortunate truth that happens. Those are the unfortunate truths and realities of the criminal justice system that really have negative impacts sometimes on our communities. But also, however, I'd rather have a situation where we can put someone in prison and keep them isolated and away from society, versus them walking away freely and causing harm to other people. And so that was my understanding. It was well before my term.
Yeah.
but you know, our hearts were with you, and I wanted to meet with you all to figure out some ways of how we could look at this individual and see if there's any other cases or situations that we could look into, to maybe look into going after this individual, because there was a pattern of predatory acts exhibited by him.
And you did that, and I don't think your the other state attorney prior to you, Mr. Sachs, I don't think he would have met with us. And that's just my opinion. Maybe he would have, but you did. You met with us. You called us up, and then you summoned us down to the state attorney's office, and you met with us privately, and you did everything that you could do. You looked at, there was no stone unturned. You looked at every possible way to keep him in prison, and I walked out of there satisfied. I know I did, and I think I can speak for my parents as well and my brothers right here. We left out of there satisfied that you and your office did everything that you could do to keep him behind bars, and it was just, he's a lucky man, he's a lucky man to be out of prison right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just like Daryl was saying, we were just so glad. I remember I can go back to when we met with Deborah Zimmett and Brian Kavanaugh around 2016, right before trial was scheduled to start that Monday. And they pretty much explained why. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Back then, I was upset. I wanted to go to trial, but they just thought going to trial that the judge would throw out a lot of evidence, and the judge wouldn't allow his prior history of murdering Cassandra. All of that had been, I believe, had been denied. That couldn't be brought up, his prior history. So, just looking back at it, I was just glad when you took the second look at it, and not to say I didn't believe Miss Zimmett and Mr. Kavanaugh. I was just glad that you took a second look at it and just reassured us and your staff, Paschal and Miss Faulkner. Right. Everyone agreed, and I can't think of the other guy. I have his card in there right now in the room, but everyone assured us, and we left out of there that day assured of everything that you told us was correct.
Yeah, we take it seriously. Look, I have, I have similar, my uncle was brutally murdered, and, I've had my grandmother, her firstborn child, who she had at the age of 16, just the cry, hearing her cry when she found out that he was murdered. I'll never forget that, because it's a cry, it's a sound that I never hope to ever hear again. The pain and agony in her voice, and then she had to deal with prosecutors, she had to deal with law enforcement agents, detectives, and they spoke to her just like anyone else, like she was a nobody, because she's a little old Southern lady with a 8th education, and they totally disregarded her, and these were for people that were supposed to speak out for her, speak out for my uncle, who's voiceless, obviously, because he was murdered. And so that was the reason why I became a prosecutor, because I saw how we were treated on that end. It wasn't because I felt a need or compassion, because I did, believe me, I have family and friends who were wronged by the criminal justice system because of their mental health issues or drug addiction issues, and no one trying to find a solution. But I was equally motivated to be an attorney because of how sometimes people who come from similar situations like me, who come from communities like me, who may look like me, but also who they don't have to necessarily be black. They might be white, and they may come from a lower economic status, or they may be Hispanic. Seeing the system treat them less than because of the color of their skin or because of their status. And so, it was important for me to serve as state attorney. And as I turn the lights back on, it looks like the lights are coming off. Motion censored. So I have to
take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
Get around here to make sure it turns back on. This is the first for me. But that was my motivation. That was my motivation as to why I wanted to be a state attorney, because I wanted to speak for people who come from situations like me, people who are voiceless. So that was the least that we could do. It was really to show you that we wanted to give it another look and see if there was anything that we could do. And unfortunately, there was nothing else. But that's an unfortunate reality of the criminal justice system that many people don't talk about. And those are the tough conversations that I have to have on a consistent basis, not because a lack of us wanting to do it or not being motivated. It's really because you learn when you sit in this particular role. And if you swear to follow the Constitution and the laws and you want to do things the right way,
Mhm.
follow the law, you're sometimes confined and really limited by the rules of evidence. You're limited by the laws and the constitutions and what you could do and how you can pursue a case. And that's what happens when you're trying to pursue justice, no matter what the cost may be. And here in this situation, although there was some form of justice, and I was glad at least he was able to go away from some for some point in time or for some portion of a time. But that's the harsh reality of the criminal justice system. We always don't get the outcome that we all desire or actually think we need in a particular situation.
Right.
Yes.
And we thank you again. We thank
Yep.
you on behalf of my parents and my whole family. Again, we want to thank you for putting some fresh eyes on it and taking a look at it and make sure that you didn't miss anything. And we thank the Broward County Sheriff's Office for going down there, to the prison before they released him, and just trying to find any little thing that they could find to keep that guy behind bars. And I'm satisfied that you all did everything that you all could do to keep him behind bars, but the luck was just on his side, So and we're content with it right now.
Yes.
Yes. Wayne?
Yeah. Mr. Pryor, we all saw what happened before you came in office with Nicholas Cruz. We saw that case finally go to the justice, to court. And your office took a lot of criticism, and I don't know why, because I thought the ex attorney did an excellent job prosecuting the case. The jury didn't give the Parkland families what they wanted, but looking back on that case, I think y'all did an excellent job. Is there anything else that your office could have done besides forcing the jurors to vote unanimous for the death penalty for Nicholas Cruz? Are you satisfied with everything that you did in that case from your office?
I am at peace. And I don't hesitate. If I was presented with the opportunity to make a decision, and to figure out how we could better serve the community, I would take it again. I would run for state attorney again, knowing what I was up against, because I felt that this was a case, and I actually agreed with my predecessor that if you ever going to pursue the death penalty, I don't care, how you feel about the death penalty. If you look at the black letter of the law and what the criteria is, and what are the prerequisites, and what are the prerequisites for you as an office to pursue the death penalty, this was the case. Manner that he committed these atrocities, the number of people who were killed, the number of survivors, the individuals that were injured, teachers, students. I think this was a case that was appropriate to be brought before a jury of his peers to determine guilt and to determine whether or not he should be sentenced to death. As we all know, strategically, they decided to plead guilty, and therefore we only focused on the penalty phase. And that was a long process. It was a long process. It took a lot of resources. It took a lot of time. But I truly believe we made the right decision in going forward in that manner and pursuing it. When you look at the history of mass shootings and massacres of that nature in this country, I was led to believe, and I still believe that is, in fact, the truth. It was the first time at that moment where a mass shooting had been conducted in that manner, and we actually had a situation where the shooter was still alive and he had an opportunity to face a jury's peers and be brought to trial. And we were able to learn a lot of information, get a lot of information, get a lot more detail as to what happened. Then we were able to put him before a jury of his and hold him accountable. And we don't control the decisions of
Right.
jurors make. And so, as a chief law enforcement officer, as a chief prosecuting officer, as a citizen of this county, you have to go with the good, bad, and ugly. And in this situation, we have to respect the decisions of the jurors. Although I disagree with that, I fundamentally believe with our trial team that tried that particular case, he should have gotten the death penalty. If I did, wouldn't have pursued it. But with that said, we have to live with the decision. That is the realities of the great American experiment, right? Which our Constitution affords an individual right to have a jury trial. And we have jurisprudence regarding death penalty, and we have a process. And it just so happens that process at that time, it had to be a unanimous decision. And they made their decision. And I respect their decision because that is the American justice system. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to admonish them.
And that was a great answer. I mean, after that, the Florida legislature took it upon themselves, which I rightfully agree with them on. I don't agree with them on too many things, but they rightfully changed it now to where it doesn't have to be unanimous, if I'm correct, now. And, again, like you said, State Attorney Pryor, that it's some decisions you have to live with. I mean, and I'm not trying to make no comparison with my sister case, but it was certain things we have to live with it. I believe in my heart, Gary Trotman should have gotten the death penalty for the 2 murders, but it didn't work out that way, and we accepted it. And that's the system that we live in. It's not the best system, but it's a system that can work if everyone just be fair. So I mean, my opinion is your office did everything that you can do. I mean, I thought the case was presented very well, and the unfair criticism, I'm quite sure that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Comes with the territory, and in that scenario, I think it was a perfect illustration of the realities that we face as prosecutors. And you walk through my office, you'll never hear it. And if you do, I challenge anyone. But anyone that truly is a litigator, anyone that's truly tried a case, both in civil or criminal, but particularly in our realm, there's never truly a close and shut case. I think every prosecutor who's ever tried a case, they cringe whenever they hear someone say that, because we know the harsh realities. As I've told you, many of the harsh, the legal constraints that there may be, the evidentiary limitations that could be. You have a judge that can keep evidence in and allow certain evidence to be kept out. You have the jurors. You have to, in a death penalty situation at that time, you had to get a unanimous decision, and that's an uphill battle. You have to get 12 individuals to agree with you that those statutory aggravators are there in order to sentence someone to death. And all you need is one, and that's the defense. All the defense needs is one individual to agree with them on that, and that's the law. And I respect it. That was the law. I respected it then, and I respect the jurors' decisions then. And we have to move on, and we have to see closure. And those are the harsh realities of the criminal justice system. Those are realities that I face every day.
And the good thing about it is he'll never ever get out of jail. When he leaves jail, he'll be in a casket. So
he's right where he should be.
He's right where he should be. He should never ever walk as a free human being ever again. And myself personally, I think you all did an outstanding job. So hold your head up high. You
That's
know,
right.
we have to live with the decision that the jury has made. So again, we think you did a good job. I know the parents.
My heart go out to them.
Yeah, the parents out in Parkland. If you lost a loved one, if you're out there watching, our heart goes out to you. We lost a sister. Not in that manner, but we still lost a sister, and our hearts goes out to each and every last one of you.
Their family members, their spouses, that lost, wives that lost their husbands, parents that lost their children, the families in general. I'm always inspired by, how many of the family members of those victims, they took a position of how can we make schools safer? How can we combat gun violence? How we can make everybody's lives better and safer as a result of this massacre. I'm so inspired by them because it could have been easy. It was easy. It would have been easy for them to just walk away and really just, be in sorrow. And I think they would have been justified. People would understand that. But their resolve and their commitment to making just the world better, make the world safer for other people, irrespective of who they are, their socioeconomic status, race, color, creed, is really inspiring. And so really they've made a lot of good from such a dark massacre. So my hat goes off to them, and they're inspiring as well.
Yes, because a lot of laws got changed behind that Parkland shooting back in 2018. A lot of laws, a lot of good laws came, unfortunately, out of a tragedy. Usually something good comes out of it, hopefully, and a lot good came out of that. Like I say again, my heart goes out to everyone who lost someone out on Valentine's Day 2018 in Parkland, Florida.
Yes. And if you're just joining us, we are joined by Broward County State Attorney, Mr. Harold Pryor. He's back with us again on our podcast. And we've been advertising this all week. And I think the big thing subject that everybody wants to know about is the selling and the manufacturing of crack cocaine by the Broward Sheriff's Office. I believe it was back in the 80s.
From around 1988 to 90, I believe
it was back in the 80s. The Broward County Sheriff's Office was then manufacturing and selling crack cocaine. And there were a lot of people that were convicted, of buying or purchasing or using a cocaine.
Yeah, close to school zones and all.
Close to school zones, and they still have that record today. That's probably haunting them. And we know that you were looking into possibly trying to do something to overturn those convictions. So, could you enlighten our viewers out there who would like to know more about what you plan on doing about the manufacturing of crack cocaine
and how that all came about?
Well, thank you for shining light on that, and thank you for having me on to talk about that as well. It's an ongoing process. It's a long process, but we're moving. Just to give you a little background on how we got to this point. In my duties as state attorney, I want to modernize our office, right? And so part of that is going paperless in certain aspects. Wherever we can, go paperless. And so also we have documents pursuant to the statute, retention schedules, documents that we can destroy. And some documents fall outside that retention schedule, so it allows us to either destroy them or we decide we're going to just store them in a certain area. And so as we're going through our process to figure out what documents to destroy, old files, how we can create more space in our office, but also modernize our office to scan and upload many of these files, it was brought to my attention by some of the attorneys in my office and our archives department that does the important work of maintaining our files and transporting them to wherever they need to be. We had attorneys from our appellate unit come to me and say, Harold, we just want to let you know we have a box of cases that we really want to bring to your attention. We were here in the office during that time, and we were aware of it. And, We think you should look at it and guide us and let us know what do you think we should do. We don't know if we should destroy these records. So they gave me the breakdown of these cases where in February of 1989, a Greyhound station bus worker, the light's going out again. Let me fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Take
do
your
what you
time.
need to do.
All I have to do is move around. A Greyhound bus station worker called the sheriff's office to report that there was an abandoned kilo of cocaine in a Greyhound bus station locker. And so BSO responded to the scene. They found this kilo of cocaine. It wasn't a part of any investigation. They couldn't tie it to any individual person or target of an investigation. And so, protocol, there's a few things that can happen, or there's one or two things that are going to happen. One, they can test it and they can utilize the contraband as is in reverse sting operations, which is a common thing and is a generally accepted practice, right?
Right.
Or a part of the protocol, which in this situation, I was led to believe that they probably should have destroyed it, right? Because they didn't have a reverse sting operation going on at that time. And so apparently there was some sergeants and some higher ups in the Broward Sheriff's Office at the time. The sheriff at that time was Sheriff Navarro, and they brought to Sheriff Navarro's attention of this abandoned kilo of cocaine, and he ultimately approved one of the sergeant's ideas of why don't we take this to the crime lab, which was housed in the courthouse at that time, and why don't we have our chemists actually convert the powder cocaine to crack cocaine? And so on the seventh floor of the courthouse at that time in 1989, the Broward County Sheriff's Office, by way of its chemistry lab, cooked up crack cocaine. And so they cooked up crack cocaine. They put it in little baggies and packaging that we know of, that we're all too familiar with in certain areas of our communities.
Mhm.
And they distributed them throughout the communities. They had undercover officers go to certain neighborhoods, primarily Black and brown communities, but also was other communities. But a lot of the communities that they were going in were Black and brown communities. They were also advantageously setting up these reverse stings within 1,000 feet of schools. And the reasoning behind that, because under the statute, there's a 3-year mandatory minimum if
Right.
you're um, a part of a transaction within 1,000 feet of a school. And on top of that, it's a first degree felony if you're partaking in the distribution or selling of particular drugs or contraband within 1,000 feet of a school. And so there you have it. You had the Broward Sheriff's Office at the time. They were hooking up crack cocaine, distributing it in communities by way of reverse sting operations through undercover officers, and there were thousands of people that were convicted. We estimated when we first were alerted to this that it could be between 2,500 to 2,600 cases. We haven't been able to confirm that as of yet, but because we're in the process of going through all the files from the moment we announced this sometime in December all the way up until now. We've had attorneys volunteering their time on top of their already busy schedules, volunteering their time to go to these storage areas, these storage units, look at these files, and identify the cases that were part of this reverse sting operation involving manufactured crack cocaine. Leading up until 1992, there was a gentleman who brought his case before the Florida Supreme Court. The Florida Supreme Court admonished the Broward Sheriff's Office. They, in fact, told the Broward Sheriff's
Mhm.
Office, they wrote in their opinion that it violated the basic tenets of due process and said that the practice of manufacturing, self-manufacturing crack cocaine was illegal, and it being illegal in itself, therefore the case should have been thrown out. The problem was that case was decided in 1992, 1993. Cases had already been disposed of between 1989 to 1992. And so many cases had already been disposed of. And then there were only a few cases, not many, but there were some cases that were still pending during that time. And so the result of some of those cases, they were just downgraded to lower level offenses, and not first degree offenses. And they were pled out to lower offenses where they were probably given withholds of adjudication and other results to the particular matter. And so once that was brought to my attention and seeing that there's a Supreme Court ruling that said that the practice was inherently illegal and therefore in violation of the due process clause of the U.S. Constitution and the Florida Constitution, I felt it was the right thing to do. And I still feel that the right thing to do is to go back to vacate those cases, vacate those pleas, and drop them entirely, and to try to assist these individuals to clear their records because it's the right thing to do.
And that's a good thing. When
Yes.
we first heard about that, you know, and I didn't agree with it when they was doing that back in 1989. I didn't agree with a lot of things Nick Navarro was doing here in this county. And that's a really good thing that your office is doing. And how would you find these people? Let's say the people that were convicted. Some of them may have passed away. Some of them may have moved away. It's going to be a huge task to locate and find these people. How do you plan on looking and finding these people?
Well, you know, one of the good things is we are considered somewhat of a law enforcement agency because of our prosecutorial aspects. So we have tools at our disposal to try to locate these. We have sworn law enforcement officers who serve as criminal investigators in our office. We'll be able to locate those individuals if we run into issues. You know, we'll be able to find last known address. But also one of the things that we'll be able to do is obviously reach out to their attorneys, people that represented them during that time. We also have our website. You know, I also encourage people as well. If you believe that your case happened, first and foremost, you have to ask yourself these two questions, right? Was my case in between 1989 and 1992, right? And two, was it a crack cocaine case? Was it a possession of crack cocaine case, right? And that's the first starter, right? If it's anything else, I can't help you. The chances or likelihood that your case is going to fall within those confines, it's not going to happen. So, you know, those are the first things. So I encourage people to call our office. I encourage people to go to our website, go to BrowardSAO.com. When you go to our website, you're going to see a link immediately pop up, and it's going to give you the information to how to contact us, how to let us know. And we'll have that helps us out as well. But also, I will say that I'm extremely privileged and honored to be in a circuit like Broward County because, for example, although our public defender and we sit on opposite sides of the spectrum in the criminal justice system, and we have knockout, drag out fights almost every day. And we're adversarial in our jobs and we're adversarial in what we do. And he has to represent his clients, and he does a great job of representing his clients in court. And we have our fights and our adversarial battles. But one thing I will say that we do understand that we do have a duty, and we owe our community duty to work together whenever we can to help those who may have been harmed. And I will say, immediately when he did this, he immediately extended to offer to reach out to his clients who may have been affected during that time. He provided me a list of people that may have been represented during that time period. And so that's been helpful because, you know, there's a high probability that a lot of the people that were affected during that time period were probably of indigent status, meaning that they needed the representation of a public defender. And so we'll be able to clear out a lot of individuals and names just based off the providing of those individuals and those names that may have been affected during that time. And so we've already spoke with our chief judge. They're going to have a judge preside over those cases when we vacate those pleas. And so it's really an all-in effort by our circuit because people realize and understand that this is the right thing to do. This isn't us being soft on crime. This is us doing what's right. When you have the highest court of your state saying an opinion that those practices were in fact illegal and it violates due process clause, it's an easy decision for us. The right thing to do is to vacate those pleas and then also to take it a step further to try to assist these people to have their records cleared and have their records sealed or expunged. And so we're dedicated. We're going to help out. We're going to reach out and have, when we get to the point of looking into coming up with ways to have these people's records sealed or expunged, or if they're not eligible, to reach out for clemency. We're going to reach out to some of the nonprofits that have legal arms, like the NAACPs, the Southern Poverty Law Center, some of the other groups that have lawyers to help us and assist us in doing that, because it's the right thing to do. I want to see this through. I don't want to just stop by saying, hey, it's just enough for me to vacate those pleas. Let's try to clear these people's record. And that's still not enough. Many of these people have lost nearly 30 years of their lives. 30 years of their lives have been negatively impacted because of this situation, because of these cases. And so it's the least that I can do. I've said all the time that it's never too late to do the right thing. And I know some people can hear me and say that, well, this is a situation where maybe it's been too late. And I do understand that. And I don't say that to say that by me making these decisions to vacate these pleas, that all is well with the world, all is well with the criminal justice system, and all is well with those individuals' lives. They still are dealing with the reality of their lives and what happened because of these failed policies that were exhibited by the leaders of that time. And we are paying for the sins of our predecessors. We're paying for the sins of the policy and decision makers at that time. And so it's incumbent on me to try to do the best that I can do with what I have, to try to make one gesture, make one small step, trying to rectify a situation. And I'll tell you this, and I have to say this, immediately when I found out, I reached out to Sheriff Tony, Gregory Tony. And I'm going to tell you this about Gregory Tony. He is committed to, we share the same commitment, us being on the law enforcement side, of righting the wrongs of bad policies that have negatively impacted our communities, and doing what's right by our communities, ensuring that we have law enforcement officers. I'm ensuring that I have state attorneys that understand the communities that they serve and understand that we serve everyone in Broward County, and that everyone operates with the utmost professional standard. And with any agency, my agency, his agency, any agency, when you take over institutions that have been around for hundreds of years, and now you have leaders that have different mindsets than people that sat and occupied these positions years prior, it's going to take time to change and recondition those minds and how they look at their communities that they serve. But I would submit to anybody that when you look at the overall product and work that the Broward Sheriff's Office has done in trying to change and recondition and really be out in the community and really try to right some of these wrongs, but come up with better community policing practices. My hat goes off to Gregory Tony, and my hat goes off to him when I brought it to his attention. And his first response was, in true Greg Tony fashion, he's like, they didn't take care of that? Like, like that didn't happen. And because he was shocked just as much as me, because he was like, yep. And that's why. And I remember him saying, he was like, that's the reason why I'm doing this, because our communities need us to be in these positions to do what's right, and to look at it from a lens of doing what's right, no matter what the outcome may be. And it's great when you can serve with a leader that kind of shares that same commitment with you, where we don't care about the outcome. I could care less what people may perceive me or how I may be perceived. I only care about doing what's right, and doing just and we'll let the chips fall wherever they may. As long as you do what's right and you have the right intention in mind, I don't lose sleep at night because of that. And that's why I sleep, because I know I try to operate with the utmost professional and ethical nature, and it's never led me wrong. And they've done a great job. And so, I like to be clear on that was years ago, well before our sheriff's. His practices now obviously is to combat those bad practices, so people can have faith in our law enforcement community and in the criminal justice system.
And you've done an outstanding
That's
job.
right.
Again, like I said earlier, I hope you would run and be our state attorney for the next 25, 30 years, just like your predecessor. I think that he should have, and this all happened under his watch, because he was state attorney for 30 something years.
Yep.
And I think he should have at least took a look at this and started the process of reversing and vacating these pleas. So
You know, it was a weird time because, you know, I say this all the time to people. You know, I come from a generation of youth. I'm 37. I turn 38 soon, and in a couple of days. And I come from a generation of youth where we were kind of in the middle of it. We were kind of in the middle of it. We're at the tail end of the crack epidemic. And I remember just seeing at that time, you know, big brothers having, you know, us having some of my friends, their big brothers, cousins, uncles, men in our community, even women in our community, negatively impact by the crack epidemic, right? Because we all had 6 degrees of separation in my neighborhood. I can't speak for y'all neighborhood, but I speak for my neighborhood.
My neighborhood too.
But because of the crack epidemic and because of these policies and because of how the drug was so prevalent in our streets, we all had 6 degrees of separation of someone, every category within that. You had the family member that was selling the drug, selling dope, right? That was on the corner selling it. And then you had the family member that may have been addicted to the drug, right? And then you had that family member who may have been a victim of violent crime because the territorial disputes, because of the distribution of the drug. Then you had the policy coming down from Black and white leaders, both Democrat and Republican.
That's right.
They took a hard nosed approach because they were getting the complaints from people in their community. What are you doing about this? I can't walk to church. I can't walk to my mailbox. I can't sit on my porch because of the crack epidemic. And so you had both Black and white leaders, both conservative and leaders, that took a hard-nosed approach in the sentencing and the punishment for people who were in possession of this drug. And it was sad. You saw 101 sentencing disparity. If I was a person that was caught with a larger amount, let's say 50 grams of powder cocaine, and I was a kid that was caught with only a gram of crack cocaine, there was 101 sentencing disparity. For having just 1 gram of crack cocaine would be just as much as someone that had 50 or more grams of powder cocaine. And we know the logistics behind that, because the more affluent people could afford powder and only the poor people could afford the crack cocaine. And so we saw those sentencing disparities, and it negatively impacted Black and brown communities. And unfortunately, at that time, if we're being honest with ourselves, if we're having that honest conversation, we had some of our own leaders backing these policies and backing enhancers that negatively impacted our communities. We had a generation of youth who grew up without their fathers, who grew up without their brothers, grew up without male influences in their lives, or grew up with mothers, sisters, aunts, cousins who were addicted to the drug, and that negatively impacted their families. It had a detrimental effect on Black and brown communities, and we're still now trying to recover from that.
Yes, we are.
And so, you know, I think there's a lot of onus and blame in this. I think also we have to kind of look at our leaders who were leading at that time, who we put in office in our own communities, who blindly backed these policies.
Yes. And we saw that too, as far as from the federal government with the the 1994 crime bill that impacted us just as much as that crack, the crack cocaine, along with the crack cocaine. And it was headed by the guys that is our president right now. I mean, they took that get tough, lock everyone up, and throw away the key approach. And I remember I was still living at home with my mom at that time, my parents, my mom and my dad at that time. And they used to come, the sheriff office used to come set up. It's a school right next to my parents' house. Broward Sheriff Office used to come set up, and they used to sell them crack. And it was more whites coming getting caught than Blacks. And they were right next to the schools and they would come sell them the crack, and they'll hit the hat, pull the hat like that. And before you know it, they would jump all on them. So it was everyone affected. And if people think it was just Black people, then they're sadly mistaken, because we can remember just sitting in my parents. We used to just get a chair and we should just sit out there.
Right.
And we used to just watch this. It was like a show. They would come there and they would sell, and those people would go to jail because the school was right there.
Right there.
So there was a lot of people affected by that, and it tore up families. And like you said, State Attorney, it was a lot of our leaders co-signed those failed policies back in that day. So it's not a Republican thing. People just want to just blame one party. No, it was both members of both parties that co-signed that those failed policies from that time.
It was a dark time, and I think it was a classic example of when you failed to look at the research, look at the numbers, and really do a deep dive into the numbers and the analysis. I think if you look at it, and I mean, hindsight's 2020 and easy to Monday morning quarterback, but I think logically it will follow. You see this mass, importation of drugs into our communities. Why not focus on traffickers? And it seemed like it was just the overkill or over enforcement or over policing of low end dealers who were in the trade, and then also users, addicts. Were addicts. You saw an influx of people going to prison who weren't necessarily bad people. These were people that were addicted to drugs, people that also had mental health issues, people that were self-medicating because of their mental health issues, and there were no resources to get them the help that they need. And so they were self-medicating and using these different drugs and experimenting with different drugs. And it created a vicious cycle where you have this policy of just cracking down on everyone and not having nuance and understanding and paying attention who you are cracking these laws down on, and understanding that, well, you know what, this guy's a low-end drug dealer who has no educational opportunity or economic opportunity. Let's try to come up with programs so he's not incentivized to sell dope. And then you have the addicts where they weren't offering services to them that early on, and they were just lumping them into a category of hardened criminals. And then you have a situation where there's no solutions to the problem. There's mass incarceration, and you're sending these people back into communities where they're not adjusted. They haven't gotten the treatment that they need. They haven't been given the economic and educational opportunity, and there was no solutions to the problem. It was just lock everyone up. Had they had a more nuanced approach of, okay, let's go after the traffickers, the big dealers, but also hold the sellers accountable.
Right.
But try to come up with ways for those first-time offenders where we can get them opportunities. What we're doing now with our education program and our economic opportunity program, and how we now have diversion courts for mental health and drug addiction. I think had that approach been a lot sooner, or they looked at it from that lens, I think we have a different story. I think we're looking at this a little bit more differently, and I think we're probably better off collectively as an overall community, as a country, had we in a holistic approach, if you will.
Is any financial compensation possible for any of those people that were affected by in that time from around that 1989 to 1992?
I'm not sure. They would have to confer with a civil attorney on that. I know they're regarding, sovereign immunity in certain situations and certain aspects or respects of, particular cases that have been decided or dealt with in a criminal justice aspect. But, that question would be more appropriate for a civil.
Yeah, because I didn't know if the statute of limitations had expired on a lot of that. So yeah, that was definitely a question that I had wanted to ask, because I know I've seen in the past where certain cases like that were eventually adjudicated and litigated through some type of compensation.
Right. You have anything else before we wrap up the state attorney?
Any other programs, state attorney Pryor, that you have? And I also wanted to say too, you spoke of Sheriff Tony. He's a friend of our podcast. Whenever we call him,
he's always here.
He's always makes himself available. So what you're saying does not surprise me. What we got to know him these last 4 years. He was our very first guest.
He was our first interview.
First guest when we started our podcast here in 2020. So whenever we call, he's always available. So I just wanted to say that. But if there's any more like programs within the state attorney's office, diversion programs, or any other program that you would like for the public to know, like the expungement of records or anything, any upcoming dates or anything
When is the
like
next
that?
expungement workshop?
And how does that work before you get off? Because I know a lot of people say they go to those expungements and then they tell them their records can't be expunged. So, like for you to tell the viewing audience about that and how does that work before you get off?
So I want to first for any of those individuals, on the crack cocaine cases, the manufactured crack cocaine cases. We do have a hotline, a dedicated hotline for this, and so you can call our office line dedicated for this. It's 954-831-6543. Once again, that is 954-831-6543. That is for the manufactured crack cocaine cases from 1980s to the early 90s. And if you feel that your case, you had a case during that time, or a loved one had a case during that time, you can call that number, provide name and what best information that you can on that particular matter, and we'll look into it. And once again, it's only surrounding any of those cases that are dealing with the manufactured crack cocaine. Any other crime, any other offense, we can't help you.
We can't help you.
I just want to kind of set you up for that if you do call. And then also you can go to our website at browardsao.com. And as soon as you go on our website right now, where we have it set up, is one of the first things you'll see. And you could each actually fill out a form on there, or look at it for more details, or send an email. If you want to send an email and you don't want to give us a call, or don't want to go to the website, you go to case review at browardsao.com. So that's case, CASE, review, REV, IEW, at browardsao.com. So we have various ways that you can get in contact with us for us to look into those cases and to see if in fact you can have your record, if you can have your record sealed or expunged, or if that case is eligible for us to vacate the plea and to ultimately do the right thing there. We have a sealing and expungement workshop that will be taking place on February 27th. This is the first place where I'm announcing it. So it's going to be February 27th. It's going to be at the Riverside Church, and we normally have our sealing and expungement workshops from 3 to 7 p.m. One of the first requirements, you need to have an ID, some form. You have to have an ID because we have to be able to know that you, in fact, are the person that are seeking to get their record sealed and expunged. Also, this crime or the situation had to have happened in Broward County arrest, Broward County case that was handled by our office. We can't sign off on any sealing or expungement that happened outside of our jurisdiction. So if it happened in Miami-Dade, if it happened in Palm Beach or any other county in the state, we have no jurisdiction over that. We only have jurisdiction over Broward County cases that happened here. And then there's a list of requirements and criteria for someone to have their record sealed or expunged. This is a one-stop shop where you can come and get your fingerprint done. You'll get a determination as to whether or not you're eligible to have your record sealed or expunged. And also we provide the envelopes, and you get the certified dispositions, because our Madam Clerk, Brenda Foreman, she brings her office there. They will print out your dispositions where you don't have to actually go to the clerk's office. It's right there, and we put it in a folder, and we will send it off. You will actually have to send it off. Only thing you have to pay for is the postage stamps. And then also we have a few law firms that come and volunteer to pay the $75 application fee. So you have an opportunity to have your application fee paid. It's by way of a lottery where you pick your name, and then they randomly pick a person, and you truly get your application fee paid for. You get your fingerprinting done by Broward Sheriff's Office, certified dispositions, and then ultimately us signing off on having your record sealed or expunged. So that'll be February 27th at Riverside Church from 3 to 7 p.m. We'll be having flyers dispersed throughout the county. We'll be on the radio, TV, and also I'll be sure to share a flyer with you all so you can share with your followers and your listeners.
Man, well, thank you very much, man. You've it's hard to ask you questions because you give out so much information, and because all of those questions that I was going to ask you, you gave us the answers to right there, man. You know,
Yeah.
so
And even our viewers saying that
yeah, you're doing
one of
a
our viewers,
wonderful
Patricia
job.
Honor, said that she said the same thing
Read the
about,
comment.
yeah. Well, it says here, on behalf of my brother, the things he did in the past, it's hard for him to get a good job because his record still follows him. He got himself together, clean and sober now for the last 7 years, but can't get a decent job. How did he get his record expunged? And she just said, Wayne, you saying a lot of truth. We had both our parents in the household, but some people just wanted to do on their own, drug-free and alcohol-free.
Yeah.
So thank you, Patricia Honor, for that comment. But yeah, those were some of the questions that she wanted to know, most likely about the expungement, and you just answered that. And if anyone missed any part of the interview here, they can go back and watch it on the playback on our YouTube and our Facebook page. And we're joined right now by first Black Broward County State Attorney Harold Pryor. If you ever see Mr. Pryor out in public, let me tell you something. He's always dressed sharp.
Very friendly, very
friendly,
approachable.
You couldn't ask for a better man than
we're happy.
The first Black Broward County State Attorney.
We're happy to have you as our state attorney here, and I would vote for you a million times.
Me
over.
too.
Keep up the good work. Your staff and all, tell them all they're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you for having me, and I love to come back again. And anyone, if you want to know what we're doing, keep up with what we're doing, just look us up on Facebook, Instagram, Broward State Attorney's Office. You can look me up on Facebook or Instagram, Harold F. Pryor. And we try to update the community on what we're doing. We're giving back to the community, and there's so many other things that we're doing. And if you follow us on social media, you can get looped in and know what we're doing, and really, share information with us and let us know how we can better serve you as a community. So thank you all so much for sharing your platform with me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Harold Pryor. Thank you for joining us here on our podcast, the Adams Brothers Podcast. You're always welcome to come back here on our podcast. Thank you. Thank you and your staff for the communication and getting back to us promptly. Thank you very much.
Miss Paula McMahon.
Yeah, keep doing the good job that you're doing down there, and you won't have any problem getting reelected here in Broward County. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening, sir. Thank you very much.
Anything else you wanted to say before you leave?
Hey, God bless you guys. Take care. I hope you have a prosperous and successful new year. And thank y'all for what you do in informing the community. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. And that I'll reach out to you on that other subject that we talked about earlier. Thank you, sir.
All right, y'all take care. Thank you.
Have a good night.
God bless.
God bless y'all. Take care.